Hello and welcome to the Think Bambu Podcast, the show where we unpack the personal and professional growth journeys from some of the most interesting minds in business and marketing. And today we have none other than Susan Lindsay. Susan, for those that are unfamiliar with you, would you care to give a little introduction to yourself?
Of course, no problem. Thanks for inviting me, Jamie.
No problem.
So I am the founder of Radial Recruitment, which is a senior level headhunting business focused on marketing, communications and creative roles across the Central Belt in Scotland. I do work across Scotland wider, but mostly Central Belt, and the odd role down in London here and there. So headhunting for marketing people.
So to jump straight into it, so I've known of you for quite a long time, as you were, as you say, a headhunter, going that way. Now, then you made the decision to go into Radial Recruitment, or to set up Radial Recruitment. And with that, there's a transition period, a mental, maybe not a physical transition, maybe it's just your home, but there's a mental transition there from employee to employer. And I would love to know how was that for you? What did you learn about yourself when it just became the Susan show, so to speak? Yeah.
Always the Susan show,
Always
Jamie.
the Susan show. Yeah.
So I have been running my own business, or had run my own businesses from the age of 22.
Okay.
So my first ever business was 22. I went through my life running my own businesses, multiple businesses, startups, scale-ups, exits, some successful, some not successful, and then ended up coming back to, I was over in Australia during that time. So
Okay.
22 to 35, basically. And I came back to Scotland with 7 boxes and a cat and a lot of debt and a broken relationship with my fiance and absolutely nothing in 2010, and said, never, ever again. I'm never doing it again. I do not want my own business. I want to be an employee. I want to not have that pressure ever again. People's lives depending on you to pay their wages, and just a lot of pressure. I didn't want that. So I walked into a recruitment company and asked them, what should I do? Because I didn't know, because I'd basically been everything. I'd been a finance director, I'd been in sales, I'd been in property, I'd been project management, marketing, IT, like every hat you could possibly wear. I have done it. I've run international companies. I'm like, I don't really know what I need to do or want to do with my life. And I walked out that day with a job as a recruiter. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fine. That'll do for now. And I
Okay.
spent quite a long time having my that'll do for now moments. A couple of years in the UK, went back to Australia again for another year, worked in recruitment in Australia, which was an experience very different from recruitment in Scotland. Came back, ended up joining a startup, and I was employee number 1. So as in founder and me, and doors opened, no business, no clients, nobody knows who you are. And I was setting up their marketing and sales commercial recruitment function. So in 6 to 12 months, I'd set up a really successful function, had loads of business, loads of clients. And I said to myself, why am I doing this for them? What am I doing? And also the world of recruitment is, getting into the age of 35, 36 is interesting, because there's loads of recruiters that go straight from uni, straight in the door as grads. And it's very they're like, this is how you do it. And the whole time I was doing recruitment, I was like, I don't understand why. Like, why is it this way? That doesn't make sense. Why are we not thinking about these clients long term? Why don't we care about people? Like, I don't understand. It was all about money. It was all about, targets and,
Yeah.
you have to do 50 calls a day. You have to do this, do that, do that. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is people and people's lives. These are businesses, and the businesses are owned by people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of this matters. It's not about putting a person in a job just to make a fee. Ah. So I had a moment where I actually was like, two things. I could be doing this for myself, but that actually came after I had I don't think I can do this anymore. So I
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
in this industry. It's not for me. It doesn't chime with my values and ethics. It's making me feel uncomfortable. It's like wearing a cozy jumper to keep you warm, but it's itchy wool and it's not comfortable, but it is keeping you warm, you know? So for me, it was just like, I don't think I can do this. And my partner bought me a book called What Color is Your Parachute, which is a book about how to find your thing in terms of what are your strengths and then what does that actually mean in terms of jobs. And I read half of it and I put it down. I said, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to do this, but I don't want to do it like this. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
how I ended up handing in my notice and setting up Radial. So that was the journey to get to there. But it was difficult to make the decision. So
So I know we spoke beforehand that there could be chances where I go on tangents, all that stuff. I've
yeah.
got a few tangents to go on, but first, just because it's naturally landed there,
Mhm.
why the word radial?
Mm.
Why? What about
So,
that resonated with you?
so I'm not going to lie, it's not easy choosing a company name, and you probably have been through this yourself, Jamie. So,
Yeah. I,
um,
yeah.
yes, tough. So I would say it probably took 2 to 4 weeks of constant brainstorming and a lot of post-it notes and a lot of Googling company's house and
Yeah.
Googling domain names to see what was
Yeah.
available. Um, there are thousands of companies in recruitment and headhunting in the UK. So almost every single name you could possibly think of is taken in some way, shape, or form. So we ended up having my partner and I had a guest staying, and we're telling her about how we were having our minds melted by thinking about company names. I also have a network of marketing people who've all tried to help as well, and we're all like,
Mhm.
"This is a nightmare." Um, but she was like, "What about Radial?" And I was like, "Hmm, that's actually a really good point." And Radial, because I'd explained to her, what is this all about? And for me, the foundation of what we do is connecting people. And there's circles of people, there's candidates and there's clients and there's network around that and connectors, and everybody's connecting, but from the central point of view. And what I uh, recommend to my candidates and to my clients, to be perfectly honest, is your network is everything. So this radial being from you and out is instrumental to my suggested path for people who are keen to grow their careers, basically. So it made perfect sense. So thanks, Catherine, if you're listening to
Yeah.
this. So
Nice.
uh,
So, sorry, I was completely unaware that you'd gone to Australia for that amount of time. Worn those hats. So this is a bit off the cuff here. But this podcast is all about like the rather than just going focusing totally on the professional growth. There's the personal growth there as well. And with a few of the guests I've had in the past, they've lived in different countries, experienced different cultures, had in some cases different careers, but other times it's the same career in different places. That must have had an impact on who you left to go to Australia is not who came back.
no,
And I'd love to know about, okay, it sounded like also there was some trauma that came back with that there. But in all that, there are lessons to take from that that you must have stood you in good stead. I think resilience it sounds like a big one there because you don't set up your own gig and rely upon that without a high amount of resilience. I know we didn't prepare for this, but I'd love to hear a little bit about when you came back and the dust had settled. It might take a few months, might take a few years, whatever it takes. When looking back at that period about who Susan was and who's the Susan that came back and this informed the Susan that is here today, what are the lessons that you took from that time that you've been able to go, okay, I can apply this and apply this for Radial and I can apply this to my own being today?
my God, there's so many. There's so many lessons, I would say. adaptability is key.
Mm-hmm.
Believing in yourself is really important. So the journey in Australia was constant adaptation because it was entrepreneurial businesses that involved having to adapt and change and move and, grow. And also, I mean, you said it yourself, resilience. You can't run a business without having stuff happen. And the life that I lived in Australia, a lot of the cleaning up of mess was on my shoulders. And that helped me define my boundaries. Sometimes you have to have your boundaries massively pushed to then understand what matters most to you.
Yep.
And my experiences in Australia were really useful for me. Not always positive, but I wouldn't change any of it because all the bad stuff, there was good and bad, but all the bad stuff is where the learning comes from,
Mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm.
where the resilience grows, you know. Um, but yeah, so getting to now, for me, it's I get to come. So when I was in Australia, I was with a business partner who was also my partner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, we went into this world not really knowing anything about business. He had a family business, and then that's grew into other businesses and other businesses and other businesses, which as co-founders we ran together. But I was basically the pack horse and he was the show pony.
Got you, got you.
Yeah. So and the yeah, where I am now in life is I have very firm red lines of what I will accept and what I will not accept. And being fair, and treating people well and doing a good job is something that's really important to me. I'm a hardcore people pleaser when it comes down
Yep,
to
yep.
it. And I felt that my boundaries were pushed beyond limit in Australia, hence why I came back. A lot of other things. That's a 2 bottles of wine at the pub conversation today. What for this podcast? But yeah, it definitely made me who I am. And I mean, I don't think it's fundamentally changed what matters to me in terms of values and ethics, but I think sometimes you have to have those really pushed to realize that they're really important to you. You know, it's, it keeps you sane. And then during my kind of employee phase in Scotland, I had those values and ethics challenged, and those were also like those situations were also instrumental to me
Mm-hmm,
setting up.
mm-hmm.
I choose, I choose what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And I would rather walk away from something and not make money than make money but know that I've done something that's not very ethical, you
So,
know?
so I've, in the spirit of sharing this, you can't run a business without things
No.
happen. Just you wake up one day and that situation didn't exist before 2:13
Uh-huh.
p.m. It exists now, and there's actually a brilliant lyric that the band Biffy Clyro put out in about 5-6 years ago that I absolutely love. I'm not your fault, but I am your problem. And I was just like, I love that. And not that it absolves you of responsibility, but it's saying like, yeah, okay, well, you've still got to deal with it. And with the values part that you put forward is Think Bambu very early on. We won a rather large contract, much like it was potentially awesome. That was the thing. It was potentially awesome. And, you got through the honeymoon period of learning about client, all the rest of that there, gone through the pitch process. Everything so far seemed above board. A few bits I was like, oh, that's a bit odd, but maybe culture differences, all things like that. I wasn't immediately jumping to being cynical.
Mhm.
about it. It was just, this is different. And then push kind of came to shove, and I won't say the brand or anything like that or the names there, but essentially we were asked to be doing something that not illegal, but on the very edges of like being ethical. And I was saying like, we can't do. My first, I thought they were like, are they just kind of joking here? Odd humor, but kind of joking. I said, oh no, we can't do that. Clearly, like, we're not going to do that. Oh, you're being
Yeah.
completely serious. Okay, right. We've got a hard conversation here, and it's to the tune of a lot of money per month, and like more than I had really dealt with in any of my other agencies that I'd worked for before. And I was realizing we are in a very fortunate position here. We either to not do, we can go down this path, and if anybody gets wind of it, I know my name's in the mud. Anybody associated with it is in the mud. And I would understand why anyone would say, well, Jamie, you'd said this in the past. You've just completely gone, you've just thrown that to the dirt. And what was the cost? What was the price for it? And I go, yeah, well, the price was that. So now I know when I sleep at night that that's my price for throwing away the morals and all of that. And I was like, and we didn't go ahead with it, but I had to go like, look, we're not willing to do that. And is there another route round? Here's some other suggestions. Here are the reasons why we're not willing to go for that. And also the risks it put on your business and the rest of that there. Um, we have that conversation. And by the end of the week, they had sent us a notice saying, we want to end this relationship now. And I was like, okay. And I'd like spoke to the owner again. I was like, is it about this? And they're like, no, we need someone with all, very diplomatic, all the rest of it. But essentially, we need someone who's going to do what we tell them to do. Like you have misjudged that this was anything other than, no, you're here to do what we tell you. And we told you to do this. You've said
No.
no, and it's gone.
Mhm.
And at one part, me was going, okay, I'm glad I got out of that now, and that we didn't get too comfy, let's say, with the revenue that came in, because I was like, well, that was going to go. If it wasn't this, then it could have got murky, and it was a yeah. I've seen companies go down from that before, but just to go part of like back to your morals and your values of sticking to that, and you find out who you are when that's been challenged. And
Totally.
like when it's
Yeah.
real, and it's not like, oh, I got pushed today. Oh, okay, with a little white lie. I'm like, no, no, no. This is the difference. This is quite a large difference with your business. If you don't do this, you're about 8 months behind on your growth, or you do that. And I was like, I'll take the 8 months. You
Yep.
made the
Same.
decision for me, but I honestly thought we'd have another route. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, just so other ones listen to that. Challenges, values, morals, all of that. They'll put the
Really important.
foundation in for your business. Which then talks about your philosophy here. So about being for people and not jobs. So I have worked with recruitment consultants before, uh, years before now, but and I've had mostly positive experiences, right? Mostly positive. There was one that didn't go so positively, and that was purely because I was like, they were pushing me to take a job that I wasn't particularly happy with, and yeah, they were pushing me to go take a job that I wasn't particularly happy with. They changed the goalposts last minute, and I was saying like, look, this purely to get. And I was thinking, you're not thinking about me anymore. You're thinking about clearly your commission here, and I might have taken it, but the goalposts were changed. And I was like, that's not what we agreed here. And I'm not being. I don't think I'm being difficult here, but if it changed that. You're fundamentally against that. So how how do you do this in terms of keeping a moral high ground, getting creative with, for example, in my situation, it was, here is the salary and here's the expectations from you. And just at the last minute, salary went, no, sorry, the salary, I think the salary remained the same, but the expectation like way, way above, as in, hey, you are now working 7 days a week and we can and will expect you to respond at emails to at any time. And I
Yeah,
was like, ooh, I've got a, I'm about to be a dad here, and that doesn't sound like a really good idea. Um, how do you manage to find creative solutions at that whilst also remaining commercially viable? What have you learned about yourself to be able to navigate those types of conversations and waters?
totally. Well, I'm really transparent with candidates and clients. Basically, it starts at the beginning of the process with really getting under the skin of what is the problem that the company is trying to solve by hiring someone.
Mm,
So, what's the history behind it? Why have things gone wrong in the past? Why is there an opportunity now to hire? What business impact do you want this person to have? What's in your head about what this person will bring to the table? Out of that, what's the priority? What's ideal? What's essential? What's desired? What's not that important? So really nutting out the brief. I mean, you'll be doing this all the time with your clients, is nutting out the brief. It's the same, but instead of it being doing the actual work, it's finding a human, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, speak to any client of mine and they'll say it's a rigorous process that they're like, oh my God, really? You know, but in my opinion, if you do the work up front and you do it properly, then you're going to have less of a problem down the line,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So for me, finding that out in the first place is really, really important. Um, Being really honest with my clients about whether they're unrealistic in terms of their
Mm,
expectations. What are the potential things that could go wrong? I mean, I've currently got a client who's looking for someone who is very, very commercial, and erring into the almost sales side. And I generally don't do sales type roles. It's mainly marketing,
mhm, mhm,
but they also want someone who's very data and CRM.
mhm,
Now,
mhm,
these things do not come together. So someone who is data driven, tail orientated, and someone who is prospecty, salesy, I'm like, these are not the same human. You can have lots of that and hope for the best with that, or you can have lots of that and they might do a bit of that, but it's not their forte, you know? So for me, it's really being open about this and then nutting that or locking it down
yeah, yeah.
and then going to the market. So uh, basically, even though my company is called Radial Recruitment, we don't actually do any recruitment. So I don't advertise anything. The reason for that is my currency is my time. So when I'm working with clients and they're paying me to hire for them, I need to be spending my time speaking to the most relevant people to the job. So I am finding these people and then contacting them directly. Now, the first thing that I do when I speak to them is ask them about them. So I don't talk about the job. I don't talk about the opportunity. It's not my pitching self that goes in. It's my consultative self to be like, what matters to you? Why are you
Mhm,
having,
mhm.
what is it that's giving you itchy feet? If you have itchy feet, you know, why? What next? Like, yes, there's a problem currently where you are, but what does that mean in terms of next? And what does that mean in terms of the goal? Like, do you have a goal? Do you have a life goal? You know, you might not know what the shape of the 5 year from now job is, but you know what you want your life to look like. So I spend a lot of time digging into that. What's made you thrive? What's sapped your energy throughout your career? And mapping all of this out helps me understand whether that person is a good match for what my client needs, because the last thing I want to do is square peg round hole somebody into a job and it
Yes.
go wrong. I'm the last person in this situation that needs to be happy. My clients and my candidates need to be happy. And then if they're happy, I'm happy. And if they're not happy, I can't be happy. So for me, it's really digging in to understand what makes somebody tick. before I even talk about the opportunity. Now, sometimes I will come across someone who I'm like, you're amazing. My client would love you, but the shape of the job right now is not the right shape for you.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
might be a gap here somewhere that maybe 2/3 of the job is a you job, and maybe this third could go to someone else in the team, you know? So I recently placed a senior person in a business in a role that was supposed to be a CMO role, but they ended up hiring a really senior strategic digital person because I was consultative through the process going, 2/3 of the job description is this person, wholeheartedly this person, but this third is not. And they don't want to do that. Do you still want to see them? And they said yes, and they hired them. So, so anyway, that's gone off on a tangent. Did I answer your question?
No, I loved it. Yeah, yeah, no, it did.
All of,
It did answer my question, but it then went on.
yeah,
Yeah, it went off. But what I liked about that was because it's going to transition really nicely into my question here. Because what you've just shown is like, here's our process for
yeah,
success and how you visualize it, and this is what the following this is going to likely lead to a good result. So let's follow that process there.
yes,
I would love to know, because this is all about peaks and troughs. Uh, Something in the last, it might not have happened in the last 7 years or so. Uh, I often reflect on, so for example, that short story I just shared there about I don't deem it completely a failure, but I take that as like, okay, that did not go as we expected. What qualification do I have to now do? Like, I have to change that because I don't want to have that situation happen again. And that qualifying, basically, I've changed our qualifying process, and I've got to have much
yes. Mhm.
stronger vibe check, is what I say about, look, am I going to be asked to do something crazy down the line here? I can't prepare for everything, but what's their appetite for risk there? What do they know about it? Can I ask these questions? And I go, okay, they're for us. They're not. That's my learning from this, as well as the financial loss. I would love to know about a time from you. Then you can share as much as you want here of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a failure. I'm not a huge fan of the failure. It's like this learning situation that you've endured with Radial, and what are the lessons that you took from it?
I've got so many. um, so, what I would say is probably about 3 years ago, I had another turning point in
Mm,
my business or in the business where I realized that I wasn't thriving as much as I could, you know? So that involved a bit of digging in to understand what did that actually mean? Like, why was I not loving it as much?
yep,
And um, so it's nearly 9 years. I can't believe that, since we started the business. And initially, it was just supposed to be me on my own as a consultant doing my own thing. I didn't have big plans to grow a huge agency or anything like that. That was never the plan. However, we're just super busy and ended up growing to about 7 people. And at that point, I ended up being in a position where I was managing people and overseeing, making sure that, con- oversight and control, basically,
yep,
and
yep.
training and development. And that's the bit that I was like, something's not quite right here. And what I realized was, A, don't love doing people management, and B, really want to be the person in doing the work. So I
Right.
want to be speaking to people. I want to be the one, taking briefs and really digging in with my clients. And that uh, the direction of travel had happened through not design, through market need. So we were just really busy and we just kept hiring people. It wasn't strategic.
Yeah, yeah,
And then it was a moment of, well, is this really what I want? Is this the kind of business that I want? I am managing people and they are doing the work. No. So I ended up, through just transition, moving when people moved on, not backfilling them, and changing how I built a team around me being the key player, so me being the front facing person, and then building an engine behind me of people doing lots of work to help and support me in that way, rather than me managing a lot of recruitment people doing the job.
Yeah.
And that since then has been amazing, but it meant a big shift in direction of the business, because up until then it was marketing, comms, and creative hiring in Scotland done, you know, whereas now it's senior leadership stuff in marketing, which also includes comms and creative leaders, but our core is marketing leader, and probably even more deeply to that is growth. So it's growth marketing leaders. That's who we hire. And it's because the people that give me energy, and I find that I spark from them. And it's so important that the people that you're in and around you, you're in a similar space to me. It's all about growth marketing. It's exciting. You're basically helping businesses grow by getting the right people. And anyway, that's me. Yes. So,
I
so
know,
it was a turning point for me going, what's important to me and what do I enjoy? Because running your own business is not a 9 to 5. Running your own business is 24/7. It's evenings, it's weekends. I mean, I would love to say I have a good work-life balance. I don't. I am like 90% business and 10% life, but that's because I choose it and I love it. But if you're not loving it, it's really hard to give all of that time to your job, you know? So
I
yeah.
completely resonate with that there. The not loving what you're doing. It's I found over time that I was, which is probably like every advisor I speak to is saying, you're doing the right thing. And I go, why does the right thing feel minging?
Wrong.
So like it feels, but it genuinely, I can see the results of it. But I make an active choice to keep, like I say, keep my hands dirty. I want to be in doing the work. Naturally, naturally, it's the way that it's gone. Uh, I've been the one either leading the teams, being the one doing the market, all the rest of it. Like, okay, as someone say, you're working on the business rather than in the business. And I was working on the business a lot. And to the point where I was thinking, I need to keep, it was not so much this year or last year, but it was definitely in 2024 where I realized I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm only keeping on, I think I've got two clients out of all the rest of it that I'm keeping like a hands on. And I never wanted to be that agency that's sort of like, Wheels and Jamie, hi, I'm here for the pitch, and I'm out again, and you'll never see me. And I thought, no, like no, what's the point in that? So I had to change it, and I also wasn't loving it as much. I was like noticeably a bit more irritable of going like, I want to be part of this. It's what I care about. Thankfully, I read enough that I could talk, but when I actually came to now execute, I was like, there's some parts here, and it was also the growth of AI. There were a lot of things happening at that point, and I had to transition. I had to change something here and delegate other work there. One, to keep me into it, but I know that if I'm engaged with it, you're going to get a much better result, because if I clock out, oh boy, I am gone. And I was like, and you can't do that with your own business. As you say, it's a 24/7 thing, and it's yeah, 2 young kids, not easy. A wife that is so supportive, more than she had, like very supportive, and I'm aware that I'm giving a lot over here, and I don't want you just to get the dregs every time at the end of the day. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I had to give 99% of my energy to this today. I say it's not your fault, but it is your problem, and you have to do that. So all that there. Now, I just I love these stories that you're telling me, because like I'm resonating with all of them and going, and I really hope other people that are listening is going, I totally get that, and it matters. Now, we had a little chat about this yesterday, and we just started to go into it, but I didn't want you to go into it fully. I wanted you to save it for this, because there's kind of going back to that story that I was saying earlier, where I felt the recruitment consultant was pushing for the fee rather than thinking about my well-being at that point. And I just had to say, like, Actually, the more they pushed, the more I was like, actually, I'm not going to change this at all. In fact, this ends. Thank you. Bye. Um, there must have been times where the fee for a certain role or a certain gig is attractive and will make a difference to your life. However, as you say, it's got to be the person first. And I'd love for you to be able to talk about where that principle has come from, how you're able to exercise that, and how's your approach when that does happen.
Um, so, I mean, it's just a not negotiable at all for me to be trying to square peg somebody into job. And it's come up as an employee, it came up over and over and over again because you would be grilled about your pipeline and your, whatever. And I would be like, yeah, so I've got these people at interview and this person's got three other options, but actually the other options are better than the option that we have for them. And
Mhm.
I've been clear with my client that they've got other options. This is not their preferred choice, blah, blah, blah. And then get to the end of the day and the my client decides to make them an offer, but they've got two other offers that are better. And my boss saying to me, you need to make them take the job. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. It's not the right job for them. And I've been really clear with everyone throughout the whole process. I've told my client a million times that they're in the mix for something else that is their preferred option and they're likely to get an offer. And there's no guarantee they'll accept if they're made an offer
Mhm,
from
mhm.
them. You know, I'm just not going to do that. I'm sorry. It's not the right thing to do. And also, I just don't think you can try and convince somebody, it just is wasted effort. If I genuinely thought that my option was better for them, I will go in to bat times a million. And I will also make sure that there's an opportunity for the candidate to meet the client again. I'll talk them through like any concerns they have. I'll go back to the client and say, here are all their concerns. Can you please give me some background around this? I'll feedback. I'll do all of this to try and make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it shouldn't be that hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As
yeah.
in, if it's not, it's a trust your gut. Like if it's really a hard process to get something over the line, what's going on here? Like, are they tire kicking? Are they just using you to get an increase in salary where they are now? Are they using you to get a job elsewhere to, you know, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so, but yeah, for me, it's again, it's always what is right for the client and what is right for my candidate is the thing that's the priority over what's right for me. If that is all working, I get paid. Yay. So it's not squeezing someone into a role at all. And I mean, many times I've had conversations with people that I've been really honest and open with them and helped them through a process where it hasn't been successful and they've been long-term I've built long-term relationships with that person because I've been so supportive and helpful to them through that process. And then they've become clients in the end. And I've ended up filling jobs for their team, or they've referred business to me from someone else. And I mean, it's not the world of senior marketing people is not massive. People know people, and how you treat people matters. And if things
Yeah.
go wrong, people are not expecting perfection all the time. Things do go wrong. You know, I can't absolutely guarantee that somebody goes into a job and they'll succeed. I don't work in the business. I am not the person deciding what happens from the start date onwards. That's the
Mhm.
business side on, the induction process and any buddying or mentorship. Things change, plans change, businesses change, leadership changes, direction changes, and that could make a hire fail. But as long as I'm there to support throughout the process and try and help as much as I possibly can, that's all I can do, and be honest. And I would never pull the wool over somebody's eyes and put them into a business knowing something that would set them up to fail. Because I couldn't sleep at night, Jamie.
Hmm.
It's not me. So again, back to the rather earn less money and not do that. So, uh,
You've said something that I feel silly that it's never even crossed my mind until you've said this here about using a consultant or recruitment to increase your own salary. And in terms of like a candidate going through that, I mean,
happens all the time.
yeah, and I genuinely have not, that has never even entered my sphere. I've never known anyone to do that. I've never heard of anybody doing that. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because in the line of work that you do, you'll be talking to people on the phone a lot, and you might be able to meet them all in person. But I'm tell me if this isn't the case. You'll have someone calling you maybe sometimes in a heated moment, or just like, I need out of this and help me here. And then the water's calm a little bit, and you're talking a little bit more about certain roles. You're, I like the term radial without the sun and all of that. They're going there, but you must have to be really perceptive about the way that a conversation is going and what the intent of that person is, and if this intent is long term, do they really want this? And I know we haven't discussed this at all. It's just because you've said this now, and I'm kind of going like, wow, why wasn't I doing that in 20 years ago? No, what a waste of time and what a huge amount of effort. That's why it would come into my mind, because I go, why would you do that? Uh, what skills have you developed? How have you learned to identify those situations, and when they occur, what is naturally your next step?
So what I know now and what I knew at the beginning are a very, very different person. So I started in a high street recruitment company called Brook Street that did, and I was on a temps desk, and it was low value, high volume, like anti-money laundering call center jobs, that type of thing. And I wanted to help absolutely everyone. And, I was working till 10 p.m. at night and had people coming in with complex everything. And it just, you know, now after speaking to, I would even say hundreds of thousands of people, and deeply, you just know. As in, I have a process that I go through with everyone. It's not the same questions, but it's a similar process to really dig into what motivates them and understand them. And I don't think a lot of people do that, but it's also interesting. So my job is all about people, and if I don't take the time to understand the person, then how can I help them, or how can
Hmm.
I match
Hmm.
with someone else? And people generally, like, yeah, they might get in touch because something's happened and they're having a meltdown. But usually that's the tip of the iceberg. And there's a lot of stuff that's happened over a long period of time, or the straw that broke the camel's back. So a flare up is usually based on a foundation of chips, like chipping away for someone.
Yeah,
So I want to know what's the chipping away to get to the flare up,
yeah.
and also, is the thing fixable? And if not, why not? And then how do they make sure they avoid that in their next job?
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm a believer that sometimes these bad things that are happening in your current work environment are the springboard, or the foundation to understanding how to build resilience and also navigate these types of things again. You're always going to come across difficult people. That's just a guarantee. And it's not always that the person is difficult. They might be going through something, which means that their day is bad and you're at the rough end of the stick, and then you're having to deal with it. It's not they are a bad person. Like, they
Completely.
might. person, but 99% of the time, they're not a bad person. They might have just had a blow up with their boss because they've not met some target. And now they're under an awful lot of pressure and they think they're going to get sacked. And you ask them a question and they've blown up at you, and
Mm,
then you're to me, you know? Um, yeah, so it's you need a bit of a sixth sense to do this job. It's not transactional. It's absolutely relationship based, and it's getting to know people and getting to know them really quickly.
and
And I have conversations with people all the time that are gut spillers. So people are spilling their guts to me, crying down the phone, going through tough times in jobs or in life. And I'm trying to help them as best I can, which might end up being a job, or it might just be me giving them a bit of support, which then helps them find a job elsewhere,
yeah,
or
yeah,
me some tools that they can use to help them. And um, I'm not a coach, but my job kind of falls into the world of coaching quite a lot. But I don't want to be portraying myself as a coach, because that's not who I am.
yeah,
Maybe the
yeah,
future version of me will involve a lot more of that, but right now it's not what I do. So I've spent time building up a network of sensational coaches that when people are coming to me and the wheels have fallen off, I'm like, okay, here are some things that I can suggest you do. But also, if you have a little bit of money that you can invest in yourself, I would highly recommend having a chat with a coach. Even if it's a one session with a
yeah,
coach,
yeah.
it can put you on the right track. And that might be the thing that helps you. I mean, there's a coach that I work with that I was dealing with someone who's a very senior person that had been made redundant and was feeling really low, lacking in confidence. She had one session with a coach and got the next job she went for, you know? Like, these things do help. And yeah, so for me, it's am I a conduit to helping people? Is the help what would normally sit under a headhunter or recruitment professional? No. But if I can help somebody, I will. And I think I touched on this when we spoke the other day. I speak to a lot of women from kind of late 30s to mid 50s.
Yep, yep.
Now, at this point in people's lives, there's a lot of change in hormones. It can happen earlier, it can happen later. I'm 50. I talk publicly about being in perimenopause myself and the journey that I went through to get to where I am now, which I feel amazing, and I feel confident, I feel resilient, I feel strong, but it isn't a constant. Sometimes your hormones will drop, and it's not a steady decline. It's like doof, 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 like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
estrogen is like this. So there's a lot of women that are coming to me going, I'm miserable. And a lot of what they're saying is, yes, the things you're telling me are real. The reaction that you're having could be because your hormones are low. So it's impacting you a lot more at the moment than it would have done 10 years ago, because of your maybe not your hormones aren't where they need to be. And that's a delicate conversation to have with someone. But I've suggested to people to check it out, and it's totally transformed their lives. I mean, I'm not going to give myself a pat on the back. It's their doctors that have transformed their lives. But sometimes people just knowing that they're not alone, and there's a lot of women in this phase in their lives that don't realize that this feeling of imposter syndrome and lacking in confidence and energy levels really low and just feeling flat and a
Yep,
bit
yep.
meh isn't necessarily, it's not normal, as in it's common, but it doesn't need to be that way. You can get your joie de vivre back,
Mhm.
if your hormones are balanced. So, yeah. So this is again another conversation that has got really not that much to do with recruitment, but I have regularly with people. So, yeah. So,
That sort of thinking, I mean, that's the kind of conversation that could change the trajectory of someone getting that
Yes.
knowledge, addressing it, and seeing actually not just professionally but personally, like feeling better about themselves and how they carry themselves, and that aura that someone can give off when they are feeling good about themselves and how they turn up consciously and even
Yep.
subconsciously.
Yep.
It can make it. I can totally see the value in that and going from that conversation, especially
Yep.
when you're going, I think I need to move jobs. Just before we say that, how are you doing? And I know some go, oh wait, I had
That's, uh-huh.
no, my life's just completely changed from this conversation here. And I like one, I think for a selling point for you is that I don't I don't speak to many consultants in that way, and I'm also not a female between the age range for that. So I can't relate. But if you were, and that's something they come to you for, and they're not expecting it, that's something that, ooh, you've really tried to dig under the hood of me here. I'm more likely to come back to you because I can trust you, and you've given me something that no one else could do so.
It matters. I
Yeah.
mean, it for people to thrive, they need to be feeling well. You know, they need to be feeling well, they need to be feeling positive, they need to feel confident, and all of these things just can go, you know? And it's not always what you think it is in terms of why it's going.
Well, I'd like to take us on a little bit of a tangent, more so here, because, and this is completely different to everything you've just talked about here, angel investing.
Yes.
You on LinkedIn, you've spoken about your journey here, and it's with, I want to get the name right here, the Women to Women program.
That's
For that
right.
there.
Mhm.
Now, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that journey of the why, um, what hopefully your outcome for that is, but more importantly from all this is what you've learned about yourself in that journey and coming out of that. I've had a few friends that have gone for investment and all the rest of that there, and what they've had to learn about themselves about going like, what's my why? What am I looking for to get out of this? Because people tend to invest in people and the rest of that
Yes.
there. And whilst all the and for me personally supporting them in terms of like, this is your investor pack, this is everything that I've been on the sidelines of that journey, but it wasn't me experiencing it. It was just
Of
me
course.
helping put together the packs. So I've been on the outside, but never at the heart of it. So I'd love for you to describe that journey and what it's been like for you, and again, the lessons you've learned about yourself on going on that journey.
So the journey started for me from a post on LinkedIn. So Julie Grave, she uh, posted about a female founder that she'd been working with that had raised a ton of money on LinkedIn for her first raise, and she was holding back 50 grand to have female investors because it was all men, and she had more money than she needed, all male investors. And she's like, I want women on my cap table. And I was like, I know women. So I know women. I know women that have money. So I probably can help her. So I messaged, her name's Olivia Parks, and she's one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. So I messaged Olivia directly and I said, I saw your post. I think I can help you. And we caught up, we had a chat, and I absolutely loved her. She has set up a B2B AI driven platform that helps people build their wardrobes. So styling. So it's on what are the clothes you have? What is the next thing you need for your wardrobe? So very sensible rather than you bought jeans, let's give you lots of jeans. So it helps uh, retail companies put the right product in front of the right person at the right time as well. So,
Got you.
but anyway, B2B, not B2C, is amazing. She is an absolute powerhouse. So she has also been in business before and had failure. And I was like, love that. I love that you've done it before, it didn't work, and you're going again. You know, I think it's important to have a few knocks around to get to where
Hmm.
you want. And at the end of the call, I spoke to my partner and I said, I think I want to invest in her. Like, that wasn't actually the purpose of my call. The purpose of my call was to go, I can maybe open some doors for you to amazing women who probably could invest, you know? And I did both. So I invested myself, and I also introduced her to other women who, some of them also invested. And then it was all back to front. I hadn't done the program. Yes, I was an investor, so I do invest myself, but in like public listed company investment, not
Mhm.
private company investment.
Yeah.
I realized that she was part of the IWA as well. She'd been involved in that and Accelerate Her program, and then
Yeah.
ended
Yeah.
up getting involved with that. Now, I haven't made any other investments yet, but have come across some unbelievably impressive businesses that are female run. Um, my focus at the moment is investing in my own business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm pausing any investing in other businesses right now. I'm still involved in the community, but not actively investing. But I will. And to be honest, I invested in Olivia with the thought of, I just want her to be successful and I want her to do really well. I don't care if I lose my money, which is a terrible way to invest. So,
Yep.
but for me, completely bought into her, and I'm like, you're going to smash it. And even if you screw this up, you are going to go on and do another business and it's going to be amazing. And if you lose my money, I'm okay with that. And I think when you're, not that that's the best reason to invest in people, but I think very early stage companies, you've got to have a big, like a high risk tolerance,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's absolutely no guarantee that a business at an early stage will end up growing and thriving. You just can't guarantee it. However, what I did learn was female founded businesses are much more likely to succeed than male founded businesses. And there's a much higher ROI from a female founded business for an investor. And also, on the negative side, is female founded businesses only get between 1% and 2% of investment money. So that's another reason why I want to be part of the community of investing in women is people don't invest in women. They choose to invest in men. So it's weird. I
Yeah, it
know.
is weird. It is weird. I spoke with Gemma Stewart, a podcast that'll come out
Yes.
there, and she, yeah, she's absolutely wonderful. One of the things that she has been, well, she's been posting on our LinkedIn as well, is these are the female founders to take a look at back and all the rest of it, sort of celebrating that. And one of the things I've noticed, or at least like I'm in my own little sphere, I've got my own little LinkedIn bubble, all the rest of that, so I'm totally aware of that, where I don't see men doing that for other men. Like,
No.
genuinely, I don't. I'm trying to think, have I seen anything on that that hasn't been a bit more either just your typical that someone's doing their thing, or backslapping, chest bumping, buy my course, all that kind of thing, where I was like, and I just scroll past that. I'm numb to it now. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, I like this celebration of this, and it's a variety, and not that it's like just these are my pals. It was I've
Yeah.
spoke to this person once, or I saw this person's got business here. I'm really impressed by that. You should go check them out. And whether she's meant to or not, it's made me think, okay, I like you. Like you've gone up in my estimation there, and also I'm now seeing all these different businesses here that I'm going like, wow, this like these are really really good and genuinely impressive. And talking from a man's perspective, I can't. I can only go what if and empathize, but I can't. Hand on heart. If anyone, a man says, "I know how it is," I totally understand. I'm like, you can't. You physically can't. So you don't know what that is. But to see that and think they've got all these amazing businesses, I'm actually a little bit surprised to hear that it's only 1% to 2%.
Under 2% of investment money. Crazy.
Yeah.
I know. It's, hopefully it'll change, but it's not something that I think you can just hope for change. There needs to be action, you know, but I don't know what the answers are, you know.
I'm probably not going to be able to come up with the answer either in the next few minutes. I think it's a much bigger, I say a much bigger problem. I've got a few thoughts on it immediately. But well, of course I will. I'm a man, and I've just heard the problem. Of course I've got the solution immediately, right? Ah, terrible, terrible. Well, here I would. So I'd like to finish off with the questions that I ask. All guests that come on, and it's a little more insight into you. If you could go back, think of everything that you've been through now, the country's multiple businesses, everything like that. To go back to the first day of your first job with everything that you know now, what advice or guidance, or maybe none of that, but what would you say to baby Susan on her first day?
Probably two things. One is trust your gut. It's always right. So if you've got red flags, pay
Mm-hmm.
attention. And the other one is it's going to be okay. So no matter what you go through, even if it's bad, it'll turn out well, as in all the bad stuff will help shape up the good stuff for you. So it's like nudging you in the right direction, and you'll learn an awful lot from the challenge, more than you'll ever know.
The trust your gut bit that you have mentioned. It's so again, talking with different men and women there. I can't think of one man that has said that, but I think the majority of the women I've spoken to have mentioned about trusting their gut, which I'm trying to read between the lines here. I don't want to put words in people's mouths or try to make assumptions. So it's more like I'm gathering this data and going, okay, if we're trying to learn to go back and say, hey, trust your gut, is that because the gut wasn't trusted to begin with, or they went against their own instincts? And
I guess.
what are the reasons for that? Because it seems not seems it generally from people I've spoken to, it is so common, and I'm going, why, why is this?
I think it's lacking confidence in yourself. So I think a lot of, well, I mean, I speak to a lot of women and they second guess themselves. So whereas men, I speak to a lot of men as well. It's rare that I have the same conversations with men.
Hmm.
So there's less doubt, more confidence, m- less second guessing from men. Not always, you know. I do come across men who do have that in them, but for women, I think it's a blessing and a curse. As in, it's important not to blindly barge forward without thinking,
Yep.
uh, you
Mm.
know, but also if you are really confident that you're right, go for it. Do it. You know, don't second guess yourself. And what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work. That's okay, you know? So, but if it's red flags everywhere, maybe hold back.
Yes,
So,
listen to those. Listen to
yeah.
those. Yes,
Uh,
even if it's a very attractive proposition, all of that. Well, here I say to, I think I've said this to everyone actually. This phrase where it takes a village to rise someone up, and rarely do I see one person get the success that they've had and success that you've had purely just it was all me. It was no one else. I got here with this, and that's it. And I like to like end these sessions with gratitude, with positivity, and have the opportunity or give the guest the opportunity to say thank you or give kudos to either a person or a group of people for the elevation that they've given to their career. So is there anyone that you would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to?
yes. So one is my coach. So I am I actually follow my own advice to
Hmm.
everyone else. See a personal coach once a month, and she's absolutely amazing. So I don't know what I'd do without her. Please don't ever retire. Um, but she's me through the most challenging times. She's helped me navigate the direction of the business and where and why I'm doing what I do, and made sure that I'm focusing on the things that matter to me and make me thrive. And that's been amazing. And then my friends, I mean, I catch up with a group of friends every Monday night. So we call it Magic Mondays. And it started because one of my friends was getting divorced, and she'd been together with her husband for 25 years and was falling apart. So we all pulled together to help her, and we've continued. So it's been 3 years of us all catching up every Monday, cooking, chatting, laughing, and supporting each other. And we've all had times where we've needed each other to support each other. And it's just super easy, really low key, and very supportive environment. So my coach, my friends, and I was going to say two, but I've got three, and my partner. So my partner, Andy, is in the business with me, and he's the yin to my yang. So I'm the jazz hands, shiny objects, energy, forward motion. And he's the let's stop and think this through, sensible, organized foundations person. So he's the one in the background with the engine running smoothly. So, and I'm driving. So
It's
yeah.
awesome that you say that. I used to work for a company called Insights and talking about different energies and dialing up and dialing down. And I'm a big believer in having different energies around you, because you'll come with different, and like, not that you like, we're all the energy all the time. You can dial it up and down, and what you come naturally with. My wife and I are very similar to what you've just described there, where she is. I'm more of the jazz hands, all of that stuff, where she is we'll call the cool blue of
Yeah.
organization, all of that there.
Thanks.
Let's think about this. Sometimes we swap, but I found with I meet other couples, and I find that, oh, this is where sometimes they're the exact same energy, and I can see that they're both like, let's go, and the other one's like, yeah, let's go over there, and I'm going, between them they will get lost, and we will find
Yeah.
them later on, but they'll be happily lost together, and that's lovely. And I like that it's the same things happen to you here. Well, Susan, thank you so much for your time. You have been so generous with it. You've given me way more than I was asking, so thank you. Um,
It's a
while we
pleasure.
finish off here, where can people find you, and what is next for Susan? What's next for the Susan Show?
Well, the Susan Show will continue on. The plan is to continue doing what I'm doing. So senior marketing roles in Scotland and London if need be. And the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So either through the Radial page or through my personal page. So Susan Lindsay, Radial Recruitment. I'm sure you can find it. Bit of Googling.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you, the person watching, person
Thank
listening,
you.
for giving your eyes and ears to Think Bamboo podcast. Once again, I am grateful for you all. And with that, Susan, thank you. And I will see you soon.